You're listening to the Today's Eden podcast, episode 28. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Today's Eden podcast. In this episode, I hang out with Julie Solomon, who is a New York Times best-selling publicist and strategist, founder of the Influencer podcast and juliesolomon.net, where she helps bloggers and influencers grow their brand, business, and income. Julie has worked with a ton of well-known artists, including Meghan Trainor, Dave Ramsey, Jeff and Alyssa Bethke, Jesse Itzler, just to name a few. Julie's business success aside, adding motherhood to the mix like it does most of us creates a new, different, and sometimes challenging journey. Some of the topics we cover are the struggles some moms go through when you first bring baby home, the baby blues, finding community, and the benefits of community, talking realistically about how we can serve mothers coming home with newborns, and the pressures of motherhood and how we can sometimes hold ourselves to unrealistic standards or stress over the small stuff. Like most of my episodes, this is just two moms coming together to talk about life in the pursuit of being good mamas, good wives, balancing work, and trying to survive our own mom shaming. During our interview, there were some road workers in front of Julie's house tearing up her road, so you might hear some noises of that nature. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening. Let's get to it. Hey, Julie, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me. So I am a fangirl of your podcast, the Influencer podcast, which is how I found you. And since I am sort of embarking on this influencer journey myself, but I'm a super fan. And so when I began following your teachings in marketing and branding, I found that you used to have a mom blog. So I had to have you on to talk about mom things with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and for the kind words. I appreciate being on today.
Yeah, so I gave the people a little spill about you and all the things that you've accomplished, but I wanted you to tell us a little bit about who you are, what life looks like, and what your family looks like, and all that good stuff.
Sure. So as you said, my name is Julie Solomon, and I am kind of wear a few hats within the marketing and PR realm. I am a publicist and have been for the last 10 years. I predominantly focus on, authors and work on kind of more New York Times bestselling books and things of that nature. I also do brand management and marketing strategies and influencer marketing. And I also run this program for bloggers and influencers and entrepreneurs called Conscious Connection, which is a one-on-one brand strategy program that helps them create their brand and connect with their target audience and grow their brand, business, and income. So that's fantastic. I have another course that's like an online course called Pitch It Perfect that teaches kind of the beauty and power of pitching and how an influencer can create magic out of, anything through their pitching and email efforts, which is really great. Yeah. It not only teaches the strategy, but it really kind of fills each influencer up with the confidence that they need to essentially share their story and their creativity and their service. And it helps them, garner media coverage and land brand deals. So, who doesn't want that as an influencer?
Definitely.
So that's kind of, and then of course I have the Influencer podcast, which is a new endeavor that I started about a month ago. And it's just really taken off and been such a joy to do. And I've loved that. So with all of these kind of different, hats, if you will, I really try to firm them up to really teach principles and concepts and ideas that will work over time. But I really do try to focus on training influencers to kind of think and feel for themselves so they never need to use me or someone like me ever again.
Also, you're a mommy and you have a family, and I don't even know how you do it all.
Yeah, well, I try. It's the best thing that I can do. I am a mom as well, and a wife. My son is 3 years old, so I am a mom to a toddler. He'll be 4 in September. And I try to balance it just by having like the best, husband that I, can have, at least for me, that really does try to go above and beyond and balancing things with his work and his schedule. And we always try to, just really help each other out. And we do have a nanny that is part-time. I live in LA, which is 2,000 miles away from my family in Nashville, Tennessee, and then probably another 2,500 miles away from my husband's family in Baltimore, Maryland. So I always say that it takes a village to raise a child. We just have to pay for our village being out here in LA. And, I don't have any shame in that. I know that, there's probably a lot of moms that I know that I've talked to that they kind of get nervous about like saying that they have help. But I'm like, oh, please, like I'm a full-time working mom. I have to have help. There's literally no way I would be able to answer an email if my toddler was on my leg all day.
Right.
So we do have part-time support there. And then now that he's older, he goes to camps and he goes to preschool and, we really just try to balance it out. I tend to wrap up things around 3:00 because that's usually when I pick him up or do like something with him. And then kind of from 3 to 6 is like mommy and parent time, if you will. That's when we do dinner. That's when we play, we go outside, all that good stuff. And then as we start to get him, bathed and down for bed later in the evening, once he's down, I'll tend to pop back on and just kind of finish up some things and really prep for my next day.
Yeah. So are you a early morning riser then? If you have a short time slot during the day?
I mean, I wish that I could say that I was.
But you get a workout in, right? In the mornings?
I do. And I try to be as consistent about that as possible. I'll kind of go through waves. Like, there'll be like a good, I'll go through like a good 3-4 month cycle that I'm like, I'm going every day and it's so great and all of that. And then sometimes I'll just either get like bored of the workout that I'm doing or I'll just get like kind of in a rut. But I do know that it is all about consistency and practice, and every successful human being that I know has that system in place. And I do think that it's so hard, but it's so important to take time for yourself. And I worked with an author about a year or so ago. His name is Jesse Itzler, and he's a billionaire. His wife is Sarah, who founded Spanx. We all know who that is.
Yes.
And he, he's a successful entrepreneur in his own right. He's written, he started Zico coconut water, sold it to Coca-Cola, has done a bunch of endeavors. But I remember him telling me that with each day, how he prioritizes his day is that, he makes sure to have 3 hours a day that is just for him. And he's like, in those 3 hours, I can work out if I want. I can go on a walk. I can have lunch with a friend. I can check emails. I can do whatever I choose to do during those 3 hours, but those are my hours. They're not my children's hours. They're not my business's hours. Those are mine. And I remember thinking, like, if this mega billionaire entrepreneur can find not even 1, but 3 hours out of the day for himself, like, I think that I can find 45 minutes. Yeah. Like, so I do try to get up earlier, and that's actually a goal of mine. Nowadays it's like my son's he's like my alarm clock. I mean, he gets up anytime between 6 and 7. So, but there are times that like I'll kind of get him settled because he's a very independent kid and he can play very well on his own together. I'll get him settled and then I can go back to bed and he's completely fine until our baby gets there at 7:30. But I feel like I was talking to my husband about that the other night. I was like, we have this like built-in alarm clock. We should just get up and start our day. So when I do that, I find myself to be more highly successful because I can kind of get some morning stuff out of the way. I can get stuff with my son out of the way, enjoy the morning with him, do my own, meditation, mindfulness, my own practice to kind of set my day up, check emails, and then I'm good to go for, a workout at 9:30. Whereas if I don't wake up until later, then I'm, having to deal with, doing emails at 9:30, and then I'm not able to get that morning workout in.
Yeah. I used to be super good at working out every day, every morning. And then when I started the podcast, I kind of just fell off. Maybe that's because I can't step away. There's always something where I'm like, oh, I need to do this, or, oh, I got to do that. Or I just get so into what I'm doing that I don't want to stop, like in fear of that I'll lose track of what I was doing or whatever. But yeah, that's been my struggle as well. And also that I'm a night owl. So I like to
Me too.
Yeah, so I want to stay up late, but then I like know that my days are really awesome when I wake up early and have that time to like look through my devotional or whatever, or get lunches ready or do breakfast before the kids are even up or something. But yeah, I just can't do it.
I mean, it really is a practice. Like you have to kind of practice yourself doing it. And I have a fantastic woman named Jasmine Starr, who is, an online entrepreneur and just an all over like amazing woman. I'll get emails from her sometimes at like 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jasmine, like, how are you? Like, that is amazing. And she's like, yeah, I know. She's like, but she has kind of conditioned herself to learn how to do that. And so I think that it really just goes to taking it day by day. And something that I told myself the other day was like, okay, I'm going to just try and start like increments. Like instead of getting up at 7:30, I'm going to try to get up at 7:15. And then I'm going to try to get up at 7. And then I'm going to try, and just see if I can get up there, because I think that that's a really, that's a consistent, I think, thing that a lot of real highly successful people do.
Who is it? Like Tony Robbins too. He like takes a cold shower every morning. Like I can't even think about getting in the shower, much less a cold one early in the morning.
No way. No, if he like jumps into some hyperbaric.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Like insane.
Yeah, it's some crazy thing. He's amazing. I love him. But yeah, I mean, but hey, that's gonna wake you up. I mean,
yeah.
Go big or go home, I guess.
But speaking of mommyhood, what are some of the things that you had wished you'd known before you became a mom? Because I feel like you're similar in that we can plan all the things that we want and like we have like ideas of what we want things to turn out like. But then, when you throw like a mini version of you that has like no instruction manual whatsoever, like it's just chaos. So what were the things that you kind of wished you had known? Maybe it was in pregnancy that you wish you had known, or just in becoming a mom in general?
I think for me, some of the things that I guess I wish I would have either known or would have kind of done more is not to be so like regimented with everything. And I know that especially when it comes to sleep, I was so regimented with the schedule early on. And I do think that actually attributes to the fact that he is such a fantastic sleeper today. We never had an issue with sleeping. He was in his crib on his third day of living on this earth. And we kept him in there. We did not do the whole, side thing. What's it like co-sleeping? We didn't do. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But we didn't even use, what are those things called? The carriages that can go on the side of the bed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We didn't even use those. My husband has a hard time sleeping at night. So he was like, we have to get the baby in the crib. Luckily, my mom was with me early on, so she kind of helped us facilitate in that. But I remember being very staunch with kind of that and his naps. But with that said, it was great because he sleeps great. But with that said, it was like, I remember there would be times it would be like, oh, I want to go get my nails done, but I can't because I have this baby and I can't take him with me, or he's going to mess up his nap, or this or that. What I've learned now having an older child is like, look, if the kid's tired, especially when it comes to naps, I mean, I know like nighttime sleeping is a whole other thing, but if the kid's tired, like he's going to sleep, and it's way easier toting around a 3-month-old in the little bucket seat, as hard as you think that it is if you're a first time mom because you don't know any different, and as heavy as it can be, it is so much easier doing that than like lugging around a 4-year-old, who like wants to go to the toy store and like wants to get ice cream, and just it's a whole other process. So I wish that I wouldn't have been so scared to like leave the house. I wish that I would have just, if I needed to get my nails done, just like load him up and go. And if it's at his 1 to 2 o'clock nap time, like he'll sleep in the car. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have given myself a little bit more grace when it came to leaving, because now it's just harder. And I know if you have a second one, like, oh, forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, I was the same way with my first, where it was like, oh, if somebody was having a play date or, even if I really wanted to go just to talk to other adults, I wouldn't go because it would be so close to my daughter's nap that I wouldn't, I would just be like, no, she has nap time then, so I can't. Or actually out of shame, I would just be like, no, we can't make it. Because I didn't want them to know that I was like sticking to this nap time thing, because I felt like, well, if they're doing it during lunchtime, then I guess they're not that like into the schedule thing, but I was. And so that was a really hard thing for me. And then, and then when you have a second one, now I'm just like, whatever, like we can't do that, because then I would literally be home all day, because for a while my oldest was still taking one nap and then my youngest was taking two naps. So that would be, and of course they didn't match up. So I would literally be home for like 6 hours if I wasn't going to go anywhere. So I just learned to like tote them around and just kind of let people look at me with my hair in a ponytail and stains on my shirts and my kids running crazy. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, you just kind of have to roll with it. And children are such like adaptable little creatures and they're so like permeable that, they're only as, of course they're fragile, but it's like,
yeah,
it's only as high maintenance as we make it, because especially when they're younger.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So.
when they were younger, I feel like I could get my nails done. Now I can't go with my toddler, or else he likes to stick his feet in like the bucket and then splash the water. So the manicurist is like literally getting a bath while she's trying to do my nails.
Exactly.
So we don't do that anymore.
No, you can't, because it's like, as like it was so much easier to just take him, pop a bottle in his mouth, and call it a day.
Right.
And it's like at worst, like I would have to change a diaper. Okay, Yeah. It's like. I think I can handle that instead of the, I don't want to be here. Where's my iPad? I want ice cream.
Yeah, always ice cream.
I have to go to the bathroom. That's a fun thing. You're like literally in the middle of getting your nails done, or like your feet are wet, feet in the pedicure bowl, and your son's like, I have to go poopy. And you're like, okay.
And but you know that if you ask them to hold it, like there's a good chance that it's going to end up on you.
Oh, 200%. Whenever I tell him to hold it, like he just pees I just gave that up. So you do. And you have to be a mom. And I'm like, okay, so, I have to take him to the bathroom. And then of course that day he had to go like 4 times that we were there. I'm like, you never go. You don't even go 4 times in a day. And you've gone 4 times this past hour. So it's always fun.
Oh yeah. So were there any hurdles that you had to personally face that stand out like most to you, either as you became a mom or as you guys were becoming a couple with another, mini you running around?
Yeah, I think that you mean just like challenges between my husband and I, or just kind of, I guess, changes, I should say?
Yeah, like anything that you remember, like, that maybe it was something that you weren't aware of that you were going to have to like deal with, or maybe like in your pregnancy wasn't how you had planned it would be, kind of or even something like mindset that you had to get over in the process of becoming a mom, or as a family of 3, or yeah.
I think I was very fortunate to have a really amazing pregnancy and a really easy labor. I had I know, and like I know there's gonna be moms out here that are like, I hate her for saying that, but I had I did a completely natural vaginal labor, and I had him in like 2 hours. Like it wasn't like I pushed for like 20 minutes. Like it was not. I can be pregnant and labor kids all day long. That is just, I guess my body's made for it. It was easy. Yeah. I spit them out like gum. It's like no big thing. But when it came to the postpartum, that was a really big challenge for me. And that was something that I wasn't expecting, because a lot of people don't talk about postpartum. Mm-hmm. I didn't have full blown postpartum depression, but I did have a really big bout with the baby blues. And, I was kind of having to just deal with a lot of the hormones and emotions that go with that. Breastfeeding was incredibly hard for me. I didn't really like it. I loved the bonding that I had with my son from it, but the actual, like my production was really low. And, I wasn't like a milkmaid. Like I just have some of these friends
Yeah.
who can just they can just give it away. And it was like every little half ounce was just gold,
Right.
So as much as I loved having that time with him, it was just a very hard time. And as you know, it's like my son, my husband can't breastfeed him, like
Right.
that's all on me. So those were challenges that I weren't expecting, especially because like my mom had a really easy time breastfeeding. And I think also too, just not really fully understanding the scope of how much really time and like financials can go into having a child. Because when you're pregnant or whatever, and especially since we live so far away from everyone, like we don't have it. I mean, if I need to go to a dinner and my husband's not available, like we have to pay for a babysitter.
Yeah.
There's no grandmother, there's no sister, there's nobody that can watch him for free. So I think that when I was pregnant, I was like, oh, life will still go on like normal. Like if we want to do like a date night, we'll just get a babysitter. No big deal. Like, if we want to do a weekend in Palm Springs, like we'll just have the babysitter come with us. And it's like, no, newsflash, all that costs money, And so it's like, you don't really take into account or I didn't at least, like, and of course, it all costs money and you get that and you budget and it all works out. And that's why we all have more kids and life goes on. But I think just kind of the ignorance of not being a mom and just thinking that like life was still going to coast the way that it was. And that, I don't, if I want to go get my nails done at 2, I'll just, get a babysitter, just take him with me. It's no big thing. And it's like, no, you kind of have to schedule those things out. And so that was a big adjustment for me, having to kind of schedule out with my husband, like when, is this a good time for you? Is this a good time for me? Like, how are we, handling that?
Yeah, that's something that we've had to learn is actually scheduling. Because before the podcast and what he was doing during the day didn't really matter. Like our paths didn't really,
exactly.
They didn't hit each other or collide with each other. And so, but now it definitely does. So like this morning, it's summertime, so my kids are home, and normally during the school year it's like no big deal. I can podcast all day and record all day, and it doesn't affect him, it doesn't affect me because they're at school or whatever. And so, but then like today I'm like, our air conditioner broke last night, so then he had to this morning fix the air conditioner and then also like help me with the kids, and he also had to make time to get to the office. And so we had this like slightly little plan that we're like, okay, it could go like this and that'll work, whatever. And then when the air conditioner broke, it was like the crap hit the fan, and we're just like, okay, we just need a roll of this. Like I'm like throwing bags and sandwiches at him, like I don't know how this is gonna work, but it's just crazy. And like we had to like find time to talk and be like, okay, you're gonna be here, I'm gonna be here, we need to be here, like, and the kids are just in the middle of it. But I mean, it works out and it's all good. But
it does. I mean, you just kind of like, you figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, we may not be like going out for like, couples night every night of the week, but I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like it all works out. And the gifts of having a child and really seeing that child grow into themselves far outweighs, any kind of selfish way that we used to live. I don't think that there's never a right time to have a baby. You're never going to be ready. You're never going to be ready for it, because at the end of the day, as human beings, as selfless as we try to be, I mean, we're innately just self-involved creatures of, our own habits. So, there's never going to be a day that we're going to wake up and be like, I'm 100% selfless and I am ready to have a child. It just doesn't happen. Even when you think you're ready, it's like, there's still a lot of adjusting that you have to do. But I love being a mom, and I love seeing the world through his eyes. And I think that you just kind of have to give yourself some time to like mourn the loss of the old you and just kind of like build into this new person that you're becoming. And I think there's a saying in Asian culture that children bring their own bowl of rice. Mm-hmm. So, when they come into the family, and I'm a firm believer of that. I do think that I'm a far harder worker. I'm way more present. I try to be way more patient. I'm just more mindful about my impatience now, being a mom, than I ever was before. So, being a mom has definitely made me a better human being for sure.
Yeah, hands down, definitely. I feel like there has been an extreme amount of growth since I've had a child than like pre-child. It was just like me and like doing nothing. Like you're just like, why were you wasting all that time? What were you doing?
Like, what was I so busy on? Like I thought I was so busy.
Right.
And I was just so busy on like me.
Yeah.
It was just a very self-involved busyness that when you look back at it, you're like, what a joke. Like I thought I was so busy, but it's like I still do that much amount of work on top of being a mom.
Yeah.
If not more.
I went through the same thing when I went from 1 to 2 kids. And when I look back, I'm like, whoa, like what did I do with all that time when I just had 1 kid? Like why wasn't I doing more things? Like why was
Right. And like, yeah, it's crazy.
So what were some of the things that helped you then when you realized that you kind of were having this like, baby blues sort of thing going on? What were some of the things that helped you get back on track and kind of maybe feeling back to yourself and kind of overcoming that stage?
Sure. Well, I started a blog because that's what people do in LA when they have kids. They start blogs. So I did that. And I really, to me, kind of looking back on it, part of my postpartum was that, I was in this city that I didn't grow up in. I didn't have a lot of mom friends at the time, and I needed to find that community.
Yeah.
So when my son was 2 weeks old, I immediately enrolled in a Mommy and Me class.
Genius.
I was just like, I need other women who know what I'm going through. And what's so beautiful about that is that 2 of the women in that Mommy and Me class, their kids we kind of like branched off and then like joined this other like Parent in Me class, and we're still in it to this day. So like every Sunday we all get together and we have these, classes for the kids to do, whether it's karate or gymnastics or soccer or, whatever it is, the art class. And as parents, we've really, really bonded. I mean, they're like family, and it's so cool to have that like with 2 of the moms there, like our children have been friends ever since they were 2 weeks old. Yeah. So it's nice to have that. But that would be the first recommendation that I would give to anyone, whether you're in your hometown or in a town that is completely foreign to you, like find some like-minded women who know exactly what you're going through in that same moment. Because even if your best friend has a child, but that child's 2 years old, it would be nice for you to have a friend whose child is the same age as yours.
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely a younger mom. So when I was pregnant with after I had my first, I think I was like 22. And so everybody else was older than me and had little tiny babies. And then I would have like this toddler. And so for me, that was really hard. But I think honestly, what would have helped better is just getting out of my comfort zone and messaging other moms and being like, hey, you have a kid my age, like let's hang out, let's get out of the house. Or even welcoming them into my home, or other moms welcoming me into their home. And I think that's kind of where we kind of get in our own way now. Like I feel like we don't reach out to each other and say, hey, like I need to talk to an adult, let's hang out.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to do that and just say, no one's going to understand what you're going through more than that person, and because they're going through it too. Mm-hmm. And, to be able to have that commonality and to really because I felt like because whether you take a formal like maternity leave or not, you're still in this state of like, even though I didn't want to do anything because I was so tired, I at least had the time. It wasn't like we had like figured out the schedule and the sleeping was down and the food was down. I mean, they're still newborns. And so it's still kind of all over the place. So with that said, it's like there were blocks of time that I could meet people at the park and that I could just do different things with other moms that I'm now that he's 4 and he's got his own schedule going on, I can't do as much of.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets crazy.
It does.
with those, like when you had the baby blues though, because there was only 1 week, and I think I mentioned this in another episode of mine, but there was only like a short period after I had my first kid, and I cried in like my closet because I just didn't want anybody else to come over. Like I was just to this point where I didn't want anybody to help me. I didn't want my mom to be here. It was just like, I just wanted it to be us, and I just wanted to like relax. And that was it. But then like, I feel like it was maybe something that I felt for like a week at most. And it was just my assumption that my hormones were just like tremendous. And, I was tired and exhausted from, giving birth and coming home with a newborn and all that. So was there anything that, a signal to you that it was something more than just like surging hormones or like, oh, I'm just emotional right now?
I think I went through the same feeling that you did, which I think is completely normal. Now looking back on it, even though I was like, what's wrong with me? I was like, crying in the shower and doing all of that stuff. And I remember thinking like, it was weird because I like hated everyone / was so codependent of everyone at the same time.
You're like, don't touch me, but I need your help.
Exactly. I was like, get out of here. Wait, don't leave, and it was and again, it's just like the surging of those emotions and those hormones. It was very weird. I remember, we had way too many people. 'Cause again, like we're not from here. So everyone that came to visit the first child, it was great to have everybody. Looking back on it, I shouldn't have had everyone come at the exact same time.
Yeah.
We just had way too many people for me, I'll speak for myself. my husband would probably disagree, but I had way too many people here at the same time in my space.
Yeah.
That it made me very overwhelmed. It made me very anxious. It made me very exhausted on top of having a newborn baby for the very first time in my life.
Right.
And I remember... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because you feel like when all those people are in your house that you have to like be the hostess.
Of course. Yeah. And some of them, whether they realize it or not, they kind of put that on you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're hungry. Can we go get lunch? Well, we don't know how to drive around here. We don't have a car. So it's kind of like, okay, well, let me like stop trying to learn how to breastfeed my child to go take you to lunch.
Let me wear this diaper out. I'll just waddle out to the
or like let me have, and my mom, who was so amazing and so helpful. My mom's like, okay, let me stop doing my daughter's laundry so I can take you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and again, it's like it's nothing they were just being who they were. And I think a lot of times people feel like that by being here is by being with you is such a support, by holding your baby is such a support. So you can do other things like the laundry and da. But I was like, you know how you can help me? You can drop a casserole off at my front door. Do not knock. Do not say hi. Like literally just drop food off, leave a note of who you are. And in like 6 to 8 weeks, when I kind of feel like a normal person, I may or may not call you.
Right.
Like, I mean, and that's
I will love your casserole, but yeah.
Exactly. It's like, you want to know how you can help me? You can literally walk through my door, do not say a word to me, do my laundry, do my dishes, make me dinner and leave. Like, that's how you can help me. And it's, I mean, and as crazy as that sounds, because no one's going to not say hi to you. I feel like people, and I used to do this before I had a kid. It was like, I wanted to go over and see my friend's baby and chat, and I'll hold the baby so you can have a break while you have to talk to me for an hour and a half. And it's like, once I went through having a baby, I was like, you know what? I'm never going to do that to anyone ever again. I'm literally going to say, like, do you need me to do your dishes? Because I will come over and I'll do your dishes. Do you need me to talk to you? Do you need me not to talk to you? Do you need me to make food for you? I'm really going to ask the person what it is that they need me to do and not do what I want to do for them.
That's so good.
Because what I may want to do for them may not be what they need. And I remember thinking that to myself. It's like, I don't need 5 people here who want to hold my baby.
Yeah.
Like I need 5 people, like either doing my laundry or making food, or at the very least, like just taking care of themselves, or I don't need them here.
Yeah.
because I can't take care of them. I'm trying to take care of this baby and myself in the process.
Yeah. When you're a first time mom, that's like a very stressful thing to do, because you're just all of a sudden, like, nobody tells you the things that are going to happen post pregnancy. And I think you wrote about that too. It was like you can have like a midwife and a doula, and like you have your OBGYN throughout your whole pregnancy. You have all these people supporting you, telling you what to do. Like, there's step by step, do this, do this, do this. And then once you give birth, then it's like, okay, here you go. And they just send you home with all your emotions, all your like saggy skin everywhere, your like leaky boobs and this like little tiny precious baby, but at the same time has all these needs that you like have never experienced before.
Right.
And yeah. And so, and then when to have all these people in your house too, it's just, for me, yeah, it was chaos.
Yeah. And me too. And I think that that's a very common theme again. And so, what I would do moving forward, like if we are blessed enough to have another child at some point, what I would say to my friends and family is like, we love you. We want you here. But like for the first 2 weeks, I want my nanny here every day so she can help me with my older child. And I want my mom here. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then after that 2 weeks, like, or maybe it'll even be longer. I don't know. But like, I will let you know when you can come.
And then we'll slowly like taper people in.
Exactly. And really that's so much more helpful to us, because it's like if everyone's there at the same time, then everybody leaves at the same time.
Yeah.
And then it's like I went from like having so many people in my house and like that was driving me insane to like everyone was gone.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, now it's like really quiet. Like I don't know if I can do this,
Yeah.
And so there wasn't like, there needed to be kind of more of a tapering and just a little bit more of a flow with that. And that was, I mean, that's on me. That was just my ignorance of not knowing. And I even remember my mom saying to me, she was like, are you sure that you want us all there at the same time? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, whatever, like the more the merrier. Because I didn't know. And I don't think that anyone knows until they go, because you don't know how you're going to react. Like if I wouldn't have had any postpartum issues, because I have a lot of friends who had like terrible pregnancies, terrible labor, and then they were fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, if that was the case, then it might not have been such an issue for me to have, all of these amazing people there just trying to support me. But I think in the future, if it's a testament of how my first go round went, I would definitely stagger people and I would just make sure that it flowed and just to be more vocal. Like I remember like not wanting, like I didn't want to let anyone down, which is so weird because it's like, you're the one that just had the baby, like, but I just remember that feeling of like, I don't want to tell them not to do that because I don't want to make them feel bad and I don't want to let them down. And, and it's like, that's out the door next time around. I'm not going to care to offend any. I'm just going to be like, look, I just pushed a baby out of my vagina. So like go make me food or like, don't talk to
right.
me, like I'll just be honest and, sorry if you get offended. It's not me, it's the hormones.
That's why I love my OBGYN from our second kid. And she was like, I'm just going to tell everybody, like your whole family, that the nurses are just doing some things and like we just won't let them in for an entire hour. And so I was like, and so she was like, that way it's not on you, it's on me. And then it can just be you guys after, you delivered for the entire hour. And I was like, I love you so much. Like,
yeah. Because I mean, you don't ever get that back,
No. So another thing, like, and I think we kind of talked a little bit about this, but I want to ask you about like second guessing yourself, because I feel like, even when we were in the situations of coming home with a newborn, it's like, am I doing the right thing? And I feel like we are the worst mom shamers for ourselves. Like I will mom shame me worse than I think that anybody could ever mom shame me, just because I feel like that's just how it is. So how do you tackle those thoughts of like second guessing yourself or your mom game?
Of course. And I think that that's like, the worst thing that we can do is create more weapons to harm ourselves with. I mean, it's like we already have a ton of them like in our bag. We don't need to create more. But as humans, that's what we do, even though that's the worst thing that we can do. But I think that part of me is just I don't know if it's just my personality or by nature. I'm a pretty laid back mom. I come from a very big family, so I was always around children growing up. I mean, from the time that I was a baby till, the youngest cousin in my family, I think, is just now like 15. So, and I have like 13 cousins on one side and then like over 20 on the other.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my dad's one of 8 boys. My mom's one of 5. So I come from a very, very large family. So, kids falling, bones breaking, it's like, people getting bad grades, but, just life happening was a very common thing, like in my extended family and in my home, so it's like, oh, someone busted her lip. Okay, well, she'll be fine. Like, what's so-and-so eating over there? Who knows? If she starts choking, someone get her. I mean, it's like, it was just a very, there were so many kids in the family that's just how it works. So I think that being raised around that, I've never been a super micromanager when it comes to raising my child. I've never been a helicopter parent when it comes to raising my child. It's kind of interesting to see the dynamic between my husband and I, because my husband's 15 years older than me. So he's a much older first-time dad. So there's a lot of, which I think is a beautiful balance, because the things that will really kind of worry him and stress him out, I don't even think about. So it's nice to kind of have that as a yin to a yang.
Yeah.
But I think that just by my own upbringing, there's just a lot of things that I don't really harp on, or I don't really focus on, or really care about. And I think that kind of allows me to not beat myself up so much. I think that when he was a newborn and when he was younger, there was a lot of, again, just the hormones and confidence things that I was trying to play out. But now that he's 4, it's like, preschool is a good example of, like, out here in LA, it's like a presidential election getting your child into school. It's insane. And I was kind of getting into that rat race. And then in the middle of it, I caught myself and I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. My kid's not going to live in my basement for the rest of his life because he didn't get into that one preschool, so like, stop doing this. Like, they shouldn't have to interview us and the 3-year-old 5 times to like get into preschool. Like, this is crazy. Just go to, the other preschool that's down the street that your neighbor's kids go to, that's super lovely, that's great, that has great referrals, and there's no waiting list and he can get in today. Yeah. And so that's what I ended up doing. So I think that just kind of like stepping back sometimes and looking at the entire picture, especially when they're so young, because it's like, I don't know what he's going to want to pursue. I don't know what interests academically or sports wise or creatively he's going to be passionate about. So it's like, let's do the best that we can as parents and get him into a good preschool, and then just see where that goes, and not get so inundated with, the systems of things. And I think for me that really helps me be able to breathe and not be so hard on myself.
I don't remember ever going to like a preschool or my mom making preschool a big deal. Like, it has, like, it has to be this one or she has to be in that one. I stayed home with my mom until kindergarten. And then it was like, then you go off. And, but like, even here, and we live in Texas, but even here, so then you call around and then it's like, oh, well, like next year we could get your child in. And I'm just like, why? I don't know why. Like, why? Right.
It's like, I remember being pregnant and a friend of mine was like, did you put him on the waiting list yet for that preschool? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like you haven't gone to tour yet? And I'm like, no, I'm eating Cheetos and like watching Real Housewives. No, I haven't gone to tour preschool. So I think that it's important just to kind of, remember that it all, it all works out. And until it really matters. I mean, in preschool, it's like, look, as long as they are nurturing my child and it's play based and he enjoys it. He's not coming home crying every day. I mean, he loves the school. He loves the other children there. He's flourishing there. He's learned, he's progressed. That's all that we need to know. It's like you went in not knowing the color blue and now you do. Okay, good. So,
Nailed
we're
it.
not right. You nailed it. And, we're not trying to save the world today yet, so let's calm it down. And I mean, I do think that there's a beauty in the fact that from when we were younger, like you said, I mean, we never did that. But, now having all these options and these different types of schools and the nurturement that they can bring about, or the creativity that they can bring about, is a fantastic thing. And if you go down that route and you get into a school that's hard to get into and all of that, then like more power to you and do it. It's just not something that I'm going to beat myself up over.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I want my friends to know too, is that like, whether you've been a mom for like 5 seconds or over 5 years, like your mom gut, if you feel like this place is good for your kid and it's not like the number 1 5-star rated, they have 3-course meal lunches or whatever for your kid preschool, but you feel like this one is good because they're getting dirty or they're making friends or their teacher is, super, like you said, nurturing, then like follow your gut and just do that. And who cares? Like just go with your gut.
Exactly. And, at the end of the day, it's like, my child is special to me, but he is not any more special than your children are to you. And that child is to that mom over there. And that child is to that mom over there. Mm-hmm. So it's like, like there's nothing that in this moment that makes my child better than or more special than another child to have to compete for a preschool.
Right.
So it's like, I'm going to go to a school that he connects with and that he thrives in and that he flourishes with. And I'm just going to keep myself in check about that.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be plenty of time in the future for that whole rat race.
So I want to ask you, just because I'm curious, because I have a 4-year-old right now, or what age surprised you the most?
I think that the newborn stage was hard just because of everything that I was going through.
Yeah.
He's always been a fantastic eater and a fantastic sleeper. So we've been good with that. We never had issues with that. Teething was kind of a mess. He just slobbered all over himself forever, all day. I would say probably the biggest challenge. I mean, overall, he's been, a pretty, as accountable as a 3-year-old can be. I mean, he's a sweet boy. He's honest. He's fun, he's kind. So we haven't had a lot of like behavioral like issues yet with him. Again, will be 4 in September, but I think that the biggest challenge is really kind of been as they develop between that 2 and 3-year-old age, mm-hmm. even though I think that it's by far the cutest age. And I remember someone telling me, actually, they were like, I'm not putting my kid in preschool. Why do I want someone else to enjoy the cutest time that they're ever going to be? Mm-hmm. Which I thought was a funny way of putting it. But it's also the most challenging because, a lot of times they can't really verbalize what they're thinking or feeling, or they don't know how to express themselves. And so there can be a lot of frustration with that. We try to be as communicative with him as possible. And we really do try to, tell him to use his words and to really listen to him and to really ask him questions instead of tell him what we think he feels.
Yeah.
But the past year probably has been the most challenging just because of the amount of time and attention that he demands as a 3-year-old. He wants, the biggest people in the world to him are mommy and daddy. Mm-hmm. They are his best friends. They are his chauffeurs. They are his chefs. They are his everything. Yeah. And the whole world revolves around him, with us kind of being those beacons for him, as it does for every 3-year-old. And so really just a lot of testing my patience, a lot of testing, I work from home. So it's like sometimes I'll be on a call like we are now and my kid busts through the door, and it's like he's literally busting through the door to say, Mommy, I want to give you a hug. So it's like I can't
Right.
be like, how dare you? I mean, it's like that's the cutest thing in the world. But at the same time, like, oh my God, you're so annoying.
Yeah.
So it's like, as much as I love your hug, like, get out of here. This is mommy time. But I can't say that to him.
Right.
So what do? I pick him up, I get the hug, I soak it in, and then he walks out the door. 10 seconds later, bust right in again. Mommy, I want to give you a hug. And then, we do that. It's like this thing that we do. And so it's a challenge. So I have to either decide, like, okay, who's the adult here? Me, not the 3-year-old. So I have the choice. Like, the 3-year-old can't leave and go down to Starbucks, but I can.
Yeah.
So I need to make that decision of like, if I'm not in a place where I can be interrupted by him for him just to be his joyous little self, then I need to remove myself because it's not going to be fair for me to diminish his joy because I'm not allowing time for it.
That's so good. I've never heard anybody say it like that. Yeah, but that's true. Some like you normally think of that it's them that has to adjust, but sometimes it's actually ourselves.
Exactly. And it's like, he's like, adjust to what? I'm 3. I don't even know what that means.
Right.
Like, I'm just living life. Like, where's my potato chips, Mom?
Right. Got my underwear on my head. Let's roll.
let's do this. Like, Mom, the meatloaf,
Right.
So it's like, he's just being himself. And that's the thing that I think about that sometimes. Like, he'll ask me at night, like, he'll get in the bath and we never leave in there alone because he doesn't know how to swim. But I'll kind of have him in eye view and I'll do things like fold the towels and da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, yeah.
But he wants me to literally sit on the toilet and watch him play. Like, he's like, no, sit down. Don't do anything else. I want you to sit here and watch me play. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do at, 6:30, 7 o'clock at night after a full day of work and being with you since 3. I want to sit here and watch you play. But at the same time, it's like, that's his joy. And there is going to be a day that he's not going to want me to sit on the toilet and watch him play in the bath. So, maybe I should just get over myself and enjoy that moment and enjoy the fact that he's a sweet little boy that is trying to share with me his joy and his laughter and his creativity. And I just need to check myself.
Yeah. And I think that's a good opportunity too, that I've like really talked to myself about, giving myself grace for those moments that I don't adjust myself and think like that, think about the positive in the moment when I am annoyed or I want to like do a million other things while they're, doing the same thing in the tub over and over again, but they think it's like super exciting. But yeah, so giving myself grace in those moments that when I don't see the beautiful, moment that it could be. And then also, being okay with the times that I am okay in those moments and that, yeah.
Absolutely. And I always try to remember too, it's like, wouldn't every child be so lucky to have their parent sitting on the toilet watching them play?
Ugh.
Like, the world would be a much better place. If like every child at one point in their life had that. And it's probably the consistency of not having those moments that, cause so many of the problems that we see today in our world.
So it's heartbreaking. So we're almost out of time, but I had 3 questions. Are 3 what would it be questions that I ask at the end of every interview that I wanted to ask you. And those are, if you could choose a book that you feel has been most influential to you, what would it be?
Daring Greatly, Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah, that's a good book. If you could empower women in one way, what would it be?
Through connection.
Through connection, yeah. I feel like that is the whole basis of like why I started what I started.
Yeah.
And then if you could tell your younger self one thing, assuming that she would listen, what would it be?
Probably that success can be built in fallibility, that it's okay to make mistakes because it's usually in those moments of the errors or the mistakes that you find your light.
Yeah. And as we end, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish that I had, or anything else that you have to share before we end our interview?
I don't think so. No, this was a fun conversation. It was nice to talk about motherhood and children and just the beauty and all of that. So I thank you so much for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the Today's Eden podcast. Make sure you check out Julie Solomon's show notes page at todayseden.com/podcast, PODCASTS/028. There I will link to her website. And also, you definitely want to check it out if you're a mama who is going into or venturing into the blogging world or any other social media kind of outlet. She definitely has some amazing information and guidance there for you. Also want to make sure that you guys are checking out the Today's Eden Tribe Facebook group. You can go to todayseden.com and go to the top menu bar, click Today's Eden Tribe, and there you can join our Facebook group where we kind of hang out and talk about real stuff just like we do on here, but with each other. Lastly, if you've been listening into this podcast and you've been enjoying it, I just want to let you know that I truly appreciate you, and I honestly want to get to know every single one of you, so I hope you do join the Facebook group. But I ask that you share this podcast with your friends or your family, anybody who you think that might benefit from joining us in the conversations that we're having, whether it be on the podcast or in the Facebook group. And I also would love it if you could leave a review or rating on iTunes. You guys, that is how people can find my podcast better, is by giving it a rating. So that way iTunes makes this podcast more visible on the podcast lists. And in turn, more women get to hear these awesome stories from these awesome women that are sharing their journeys on this podcast. And the quote I want to leave with you today is from Lisa T. Shepherd, and she says, "In raising my children, I have lost my mind, but found my soul."